everyone, in this video I'm going to go over how to teach your dog to go into their crate on cue and actually enjoy going into their crate and be able to relax. Now, whether you plan to use a crate or not, being able to teach your dog to relax in their crate is a really important skill, especially if you plan on training your dog for therapy dog work or service dog work. But honestly, any dog should learn how to go into the crate regardless of whether you plan to use a crate or not. And that's because over their lifespan, most likely they are going to have to go into a crate, and we don't want that time to traumatize them. For example, if they have to get spayed or neutered, or if they have to get surgery and they have to stay overnight. In our society, it is just most likely inevitable that your dog is at some point going to have to go into a crate, so we might as well help them get comfortable so they are not traumatized when they have to go in eventually. Before we dive too far into the video though, hi, my name is Lisa. I'm a certified professional dog trainer, and I've helped hundreds and hundreds of dogs and their parents live more peaceful lives together. You might notice right now that I am really into service dog training content, and that's kind of what I am transitioning towards, is doing more service dog content. But there is a lot of overlap, and whether you have a pet dog, a service dog, therapy dog, or just want a really well-behaved pet, these tips are going to help you a lot. Now, if your dog already has experienced severe crate trauma, like they are terrified to go near the crate, fast forward, I added chapters in this video and go into the end, which I will talk a little bit more about troubleshooting your crate training. But right now we're going to go over the very basics. Now, it's important that there's a difference between when we're training this cooperative crate training versus when they have to go in. So when they have to go in, it is totally okay just to toss some treats in there or put a Kong or whatever. But over time, we want to help them learn to relax and stay calm in their crate. We also don't want to create any traumatic experiences in the meantime, especially while we're training and they don't have much reinforcement history yet, meaning they don't have a lot of historical evidence for themselves to know that the crate is safe. So that's when we have reinforcement history built up, we have a little bit more wiggle room to, have some negative experiences. However, if your dog has only experienced trauma in the crate and then you try to train them this, it's going to take much longer, and you may not be able to train them at all because they have more negative experiences than positive. So like I said, if your dog has crate trauma, then try to go to the end of this video on troubleshooting to start from scratch, and then try to remove any type of traumatic experiences that they may have to endure in the crate. Also, another disclaimer is if your dog has separation anxiety, I actually do not recommend using a crate for that. There's actually a full separation anxiety protocol that you can learn. I know of a trainer who has an amazing separation anxiety course, and I will link to it below because it truly is a really amazing course. Okay, so step one is doing a game called the in and out game. All I'm going to do is I'm not going to close the door. I'm going to leave it open, and I'm going to toss a treat in and then toss a treat out. She already knows. Now, the reason why we also want to toss a treat out is because tossing a treat out is going to provide double reinforcement, meaning they get to leave the thing that's scary, create distance away from the thing that's scary, and they get a treat. And that pattern is going to help them build some structure, some reliable understanding around what is to be expected with this crate. Now, once your dog is regularly, going in without hesitation, you're going to start tossing the treat in closer and closer to the back of the crate. I forgot to mention too that if your dog is really scared, you can always put a treat more towards the entrance so they don't have to go in, or you can even toss a treat by the entrance so that they don't have to go in at all, and then you can start from there and then slowly move into the crate. But if your dog is regularly going into the crate, like how Deary just was, then you're going to move on to the next step, which is to say crate. Okay, well, she already is going in, but let's say she didn't go in. We want to make sure that we are saying crate, the cue, pausing for a moment, even though they don't know what it is. We want them to really register what it means in their brain, then toss the treat in. The reason why we don't say crate as we toss the treat in at the same time is because they're so focused on the treat, they're not going to hear what you're saying. You're going to keep repeating this over and over until your dog goes in for the first time, just with the verbal cue. Okay, so for the next step, what you're gonna do is say, crate, yes, toss a treat inside, touch the door, and then say free. And so if this is too much for your dog, you can also just touch the door. For some dogs, that might already be too much. Great. Yes. Touch the door. Free. So if you notice when you're touching the door, your dog is rushing out. I'm usually more facing towards the crate, to be honest, but for the video, I'm facing the video. But if I'm actually training, I will usually like sit right here. It's less likely she's gonna run out. Free. If you notice a change in behavior where she doesn't want to go in anymore, that usually means it's time to take a break. And you want to divide this up into a few sessions. Great. Good girl. So you're going to keep practicing until your dog just gets really, really comfortable. And a little tip is to remember that the slower you go and the more you divide this up into smaller sessions, the more successful you're going to be. It's really tempting to try to do everything in one session, but trust me, if your dog has anxiety, this can be really stressful. So just make sure you're taking it into small little training sessions and slowly working up to the full version of the behavior that you want. Also notice when your dog struggles right here, I close it all the way and Deary sits up. She's no longer laying down. So that tells me that it was a little bit too much for her, and I'm going to make the next round a little bit easier by just touching the door instead of fully closing it. And it's a good idea in general to vary difficulty so it doesn't keep getting harder and harder. Sometimes they have easier reps for a quote unquote mini break. So if you were to think of difficulty on a graph, it should almost look like, in general, the trend is getting harder. However, there's little waves, right? So it'll go up and down, harder, easier, but overall your harder gets harder and your easier also will become harder, as long as you are planning accordingly and really watching your dog's body language, because they will tell you if it's too much or not. Once you feel like your dog is pretty good going into the crate, we can start to increase duration. So I close the door for 1 second, drop a treat, open it, and then I say free. So once I want to start building more duration in here, when it gets to kind of the longer periods of time, I'll drop a treat intermittently into the crate. If you're used to using a clicker or a verbal marker for this, I don't use that because I'm trying to keep them calm in here. Okay. Free. And it's a good sign if your dog doesn't want to get out. Come on. So now I want to talk a little bit about what to do if your dog is terrified of the crate. So some troubleshooting, like you can't even get to the first step because your dog already has had a negative experience with the crate. So the first one is give them a little bit of FOMO. So when they're not in the room, you're gonna put and this is why you don't do. So when they're not in the room, put something really exciting in here, like either their food bowl or a brand new toy or a bully stick that they haven't had before. And we're basically gonna use FOMO to get them to want to go into the crate. And once they start getting upset over it, you can open and then let them in. Now, if they're too scared to go in after you open it, I recommend just leaving the room because they know that you're the one that can close the door. And so they're actually typically going to be scared of you closing the door to the crate. Another technique is to leave the room so that they can start getting comfortable a little bit more. And you can also always use like a new crate as well, since they already have a bad experience with the crate that you're using. So instead of a wire crate, maybe you switch to a different style crate, like a plastic crate, or maybe you switch to an inflatable crate. So you can kind of like switch it up so that it doesn't have the same exact context. All right, that's it for today, everyone. Please let me know by writing the word helpful in the comments below if you found this video helpful, or let me know if you have any questions or any future content ideas you'd like me to cover. Additionally, don't forget to subscribe, just a reminder, and hit that like button as it helps out my channel a lot. And with that said, I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.